Aloha. I had to do a focus video on the Young Turks real quick because I thought about this yesterday and it was just something that popped up, and then I woke up this morning in this video. NASA warns of mass extinction if we don't fix climate change. It just balls in together everything in one video because my initial response, or excuse me, my initial feeling yesterday about the Young Turks was they are actually worse than the mainstream media. And the title of their whole design is the protection or the distraction from understanding the deeper storylines as a whole. So one thing we can understand is chemtrails. That's already understood. This is not a conspiracy theory. The Young Turks has nothing to say about that. We understand that the government messes around with weather modification. We understand that the government and the so-called powers that be are behind the emissions, the entire destruction of nature as a whole. This stuff is all understood. Like, you can ask a child, like, who's doing this, and the child will tell you, like, oh, well, it's not the actual kids, it's not the actual people, it's these corporations, it's money. You can use basic math. You can go to a 6th grade class and speak about this stuff, and they will tell you who's doing what. So we are being kept as a whole in elementary school because of these individuals, these so-called alternative news casters, who are basically just holding the pillars of this system up through so-called intellect, through so-called logic. And then you can see this when the main guy on the Young Turks is Jank. He just bullies. It's the most annoying personality out there. He just, of course, this whole like, oh yeah, that is an actual spell where you just believe what he says just because he's passionate about it, and it makes some kind of sense on some level. But if you're making sense on a level that doesn't incorporate all of the facts that are out there, if you call NASA giving you facts, then that's already one thing that you rely on the university system facts, which is all paid government stuff. All this stuff that gets put out there is to push agendas. And this is that split between there's like three storylines that are going on, but they're all the same when you really step back and see all of them. You got the mainstream thought process, which is just totally under the 3-level distraction grid. Then you have the alternative news, which is put in there in between the mainstream and the so-called conspiracy storyline, in order to make the conspiracy storyline seem more conspiracy and make the mainstream seem more ridiculous or more valid at the same time. So this is why the alternative news, and I'm using the Young Turks as an example, is worse than all of them, because if they didn't exist, then we would actually see how ridiculous the mainstream is, and individuals would actually look more into the so-called conspiracy storylines and actually see how this stuff all connects. So this was a very strategic move by installing these so-called alternative news, and Jank is from CNN or MSNBC, wherever he came from, and he has this younger crew on here, and then they have they have a black guy who's supposed to be like in charge of them, so that's supposed to make it okay because oh yeah, they're forward thinking because you know they don't have that at CNN, MSNBC, or Fox. They don't even have any black people working there, but this guy's actually in charge of the Young Turks, so we must trust this. And then they have him on there speaking about certain things here and there. They talk about Black Lives Matter. They speak about certain things here and there, but that's only to get you to believe stories like this, like NASA warns of mass extinction if we don't fix climate change. How many holes are in that? How many other pieces of evidence are behind? And then their so-called change, their ideas of change involve asking the government or asking your politicians or even protesting your politicians. It's the same thing. It's all about powerlessness. They exist in powerlessness. They are about this old and they're all about the Bernie thing. So the Bernie thing is all about, you know, just giving your power away. You already know what that storyline is about, but it's really just about the basically empowering the system again and keeping individuals from realizing the deeper storylines. You can already understand that the government, there's proof out there, weather modification and chemtrails. That for starters, you don't think that has anything throwing aluminum into the sky? You don't think that has anything to do with climate change at all? Weather modification at all? These floods already, also the information that's available for what happened in Katrina. All this stuff that exists is they're acting like it doesn't exist. They're acting like in order to push an agenda. So you get NASA out there who is supposed to be credible that tells you, oh, we're going to have a climate change war. There's going to be World War III started if we don't do something about climate change. And hey, NASA's the one telling us this stuff. And they're saying it's actually climate change is actually worse than we initially believed, because if you go before the 60s, then you'll see that the ice caps and all this other stuff, they just go into depths. They have to tell you the story from many different perspectives in order to hide all the stories. So of course they're hiding the globe deception. They're hiding all of the other agendas behind there, the new world. So this is basically like setting up the new world order agenda, or the new age agenda, to come together and combat climate change and do all this other stuff, whatever it is that, you know, gets put out there to push more control measures on the masses and empower the so-called powers that be even further with fear. That's the main thing with like if you watch this video, it's all fear-based. It's all like, if we don't do anything, like these government, it's gonna be World War III, and NASA says, you know, we're in a mass extinction, and the list goes. This is just one video that includes NASA, and then climate change, and then World War III, and more control. Like in one video, you can see how much is being manipulated, how many storylines are being manipulated. And yeah, it's just ridiculous. And I wanted to put this together because I know there are some people that still watch the Young Turks. There's information that exists that is part of the storyline. Like, I understand that, but just like people who still watch like Ellen, and who still trust people in that whole system, like that, those are actually the worst individuals. Like, they're doing the deepest programming. Like the people that you trust, like Tom Hanks and Will Smith, those like softy characters who they are doing the deepest programming. Ellen doing the deepest programming right under your nose without even realizing it. Selling it instead of out in your face, selling it so you can believe the system as a whole. The Young Turks is just another version of that. So the Young Turks actually makes the mainstream look more ridiculous and look more valid by amplifying the storylines that they present. So it's out there to do that, to keep it alive. And it's also out there as a buffer between conspiracy, so-called conspiracy storylines, to just totally like not talk about any of that stuff. So it's a very obvious chess piece on the board when you break it down like that and see how it fits into everything. And you can look at every single video, and everything is limited by Jenk's ego, and everybody on there has to adjust their storylines. It doesn't matter how passionate they are about anything. They are part of that problem, that program of mind control. That's basically what it is. The Young Turks is another version of mind control, to dumb you down from going deeper by just using the ego to build up the ego of like, oh, well, this is just ridiculous. Why would you even talk about that stuff? You got climate change deniers, and then they put you in boxes, like people who think differently from the evolution mind control program. They get balled up into a box of creationists. Oh, these creationists, oh, they're just ridiculous. And then creationists get balled up with religion, the religions who are all about creation. So they just, oh, well, you guys are just that's Jenk's whole his whole style is come on, guys, what are you just da 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 da, whatever the hell he's talking about. It's all about selling it to you. It's not a mistake this alternative stuff goes out there, and they do the same thing with the mainstream. Oh, they're just so ridiculous. We're so much better. Look, we have millions of followers, and we're big and bad, and then tie in the Alex Jones thread and the whole like Republican National Convention thing, and that whole thing went down like, oh yeah, we're fighting, we're different, we're this, we're that, you guys are the bad guys, we're the good guys. That's just Trump versus Hillary and Bernie. It's the same shit in order to build themselves up. And then what happens is we come away thinking that we're informed or we know something or whatever based upon what these assholes are selling with their giant egos. And then they tie in celebrities to get Rosario Dawson and Susan Sarandon and whoever else out there. Whether they know how deep this program goes or not, usually when you're up there making millions of dollars in these mind control movies, you know what the fuck is going on. When they tie those individuals on here, they're just tying your heartstrings into believing these storylines. And yeah, it's ridiculous. So I wanted to put this video out there and just just focus it on the Young Turks for a moment, because they're very obvious. They're just playing the dumb role. It's to dumb you down, to make you dumb. These are these programs. The mainstream media is to make you dumb. The Young Turks, so-called alternative news source, is out there to make you dumb, squared. Like, to even more so, you're intellectually dumb because you are believing in these storylines that are deeper into the program, and you're also not looking into the other storylines that are also part of the program. And it's ridiculous. So I'll leave it there. Of course, you can look at all these other videos, check out. See what kind of things come up. Distraction. Like they made a whole video on tourists on in Brazil, and like what people think about the tourists in Brazil. Like this shit is not any kind of news. This is a distraction grid. Here, this is an entire to get you locked in into to make this storyline of this mind control program more real. They're actually worse than the mainstream media. Worse. And Jank out there, it's really like pissed me off. Like I'm really they make you think. So like they make you think about certain things. So like the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. So Jank says, well, you know, I'm for it, but I'm also against it. Like I don't, don't disrespect this, but I want you to have free speech. These individuals are telling you how to think. They are telling you how you should feel, and then forcing you with his giant fucking ego, forcing you to believe and think the way they do. And then you got Anna, who's on there just to like soften it up, and then she tells this side of the story, and then sometimes she gets really pissed off about it. I'm really pissed off, and then totally, and then you got the intellectual dude or John, the other guy, who he's also talking about the cool side. Well, I see this, but I'm also like about this. And then you got the black guy who's on there. He's like, yeah, you guys, I'm in charge of everything, so I'm cool with this. This is cool. And I'm not cool with this. Like when we need to talk about black matters, then I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this stuff. So you get every single angle gets addressed. And Jank is supposed to be like the non-white guy, white guy. Like he used to be a Republican, whatever the fuck that means. They tell you how to think. This is a mind control program. Total distraction. Total locking you into a program. And I'm done. I'm done with giving any kind of credit or not even credit, but just any kind of paying attention to anything that they're saying. All of this shit. This is all a distraction. Every last story. It's right on the edge. Very, very, very smart algorithm. Right on the edge. Is Alex Jones a lunatic? Like, so you already see what I'm talking about. Make you believe in certain things, make you discredit other things, pull your heartstrings on certain perspectives. This is how you get controlled. And then the thing is that other stories, other writers, other individuals, they base their stories off of these stories and these perspectives. So it's all connected. So just as much as, everybody's talking about Trump all the time, it's so ridiculous. This is garbage. Garbage. All of it. Make you focus on the mainstream media. They knew the so-called they knew that the timing of the mainstream media was tanking, is done. It has just like they don't have anybody going to these little speeches for Hillary or anybody. Nobody believes in politics anymore. They know nobody's really, and the only people that are paying attention to the mainstream are people who are totally locked into that system, or the older generation. So they installed this so-called alternative news program to make it stay afloat just a little bit longer, and also install another version of mind control. There's that Ellen shit. These are all rituals. This is all a whole ritual thing. Like that whole Usain Bolt and Ellen shit, that wasn't a mistake. They knew all her handlers, all those people around her. This shit ain't a mistake. And then all the news sources just go ahead and play it over and over again. And then you get that programming in your head. Excuse me. That's the main thing. That's enough. You can get you get where I'm coming from on this. You can see how this is to keep that idea of it really is to keep this whole supremacy program afloat. The whole colonization program, all of it, to keep it valid. Like they are the ones in power. Like they have power over you. And it's sold through fear, manipulation of the storylines, the shallow version of the storylines, and some very slick moves, like the way these perspectives take on the mainstream, both building it up and beating it down, and then totally just looking the other way from so-called conspiracy stuff and simultaneously beating that down. And then raising up this whole idea of this American idea. This is the old America. It's basically just like Make America Great Again. It's the same thing. They say they're for Bernie, but when you really look into their stuff, they're really about this whole like, well, we need to go back to our old values and all this other shit. This is a mind control. So I'll leave it there. I just had to put this out because it was extra obvious with that video when they tied in NASA and climate change and World War III. So those are three big things. And they were just all about it. So NASA, obviously full of shit. Climate change, obviously full of other kinds of involved groups, scenarios, and storylines. And then World War III, bringing in this idea of climate change wars. People going to war because of climate change. So it was just a big, obvious thing. And there was a last straw for me in the whole Young Turks, because I know there's probably some people on this channel who still watch the Young Turks. I still look just like other people would to see the trend of the storyline, because it's all these storylines are running at the same time, so they have some kind of you can see what these other storylines are trying to make you believe in. Excuse me. And but this is done. I'm done with it. It's ridiculous. It's basically just like watching Fox News. So, thank you for joining me. Until next time, peace, love, and harmony.